All right, Zig coming in on the top. Today on the show, we have an epic one. We have Nick Hexum of 311. Nick Hexum is a singer, songwriter, rapper, and guitarist. 311, the legendary alternative genre-bending band that takes sounds from hip-hop, reggae, rock, metal, and blends them together to make a unique style that is completely their own. They've been going strong for the last 30-plus years and continue to do so. So getting to talk with Nick was like talking to someone who has rode the seas of consequence through the musical career and had nothing but wisdom and insight to share. And I'm excited to share that wisdom and insight with you guys soon. I want to thank my friend Rachel from the Grog Shop for the opportunity to talk with Nick. March 31st, here in Cleveland, Ohio, Nick is playing with the Water Tower Band at the Grog Shop. Tickets are available, linked below. It'll be a fantastic performance. I've seen videos with Nick in the Water Tower Band, and they do a traditional bluegrass style approach where there's one mic and everyone's leaning in, and it's kind of like what you would see on the Grand Ole Opry. Nick has a new album out called Phases of Hope and Hollow, and it's his dive into his musical history, and instead of taking on like the rap, rock, reggae stuff you're used to hearing from 311 and used to hearing Nick's voice accompany, with this tour, Nick dives into an intimate singer-songwriter, country folk-based approach, and it's really, really cool. It's cool to see the versatility of a musician who's not afraid to dive into a new genre and be in vulnerable waters. It was an honor to chat with Nick. It was really cool to talk with someone whose music I've grown up around. Like, I even remember like trying to learn all mixed up, and that was kind of my first approach to learning some basic jazz chords. All right, a few more things before we get to this interview. A little housekeeping. I play in a band called C Level, letter C dash Level. We are a high-energy funk punk reggae rock group that takes 12-string acoustic guitars and runs them through Marshall amplifiers. We have a new song out with HR of Bad Brains called What's Left. During this conversation with Nick, we talk about his song with HR of Bad Brains and how the Bad Brains affected 311, and how Nick even uses HR's solo record as a warm-up before he records. Anywho, we have a show happening April 24th with Marvin and Logan B and the Dirty Leaf Band at Negative Space. So if you enjoy my banter and you think his music might be okay, check it out at c-level44.com. We got tickets to the show. Also, our song What's Left is on all the streaming platforms. Give it a spin if you want to check it out. Lastly, if you hear anything you like, if you can like, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast on any of the podcast platforms, it helps me keep talking to cool guests like Nick and sharing their insight with you. So without further ado, this is my conversation with Nick Hexum of 311. So, to jump into it, I wanted to ask you about one of your first gigs was you were in The Clash?
Yes. My first gig was billed as The Clash. We told our music teacher at Arbor Heights in 7th grade to call us a tribute to The Clash. But she's like, I just like The Clash. I'm just going to put The Clash. So
that's awesome. So at that time, The Clash, because man, I'm a huge fan of The Clash, and you eventually got to record and work with Joe Strummer a bit.
Yeah. I got to tell you, my incredibly humbling. Well, it was the most validating thing that I could have ever imagined. Is that this was around Transistor 97, our manager, Adam Raspler, knew this guy who was managing Joe Strummer on his American, Mescaleros kind of thing. And he said, I'm Joe's coming over for dinner at Hollywood Hills. Come on over. And we were like, yeah, we got to do that. Go meet Joe Strummer and have dinner. And I show up, and there's this cool Cuban salsa music coming over by this boombox, and so I'm over there standing by. I hadn't seen Joe yet. I'm grooving to it, and then I look and there's these little alien heads on the boombox. I was like, "That's our sticker." We used to sell this sticker pack that was a big 311 logo and then 5 alien heads, and then I look, and the big 311 logo is on the CD player part of the boombox, and I was like, what's going on here? And the manager guy was like, yeah, that's Joe's boombox.
Whoa.
I was like, excuse me? I'm overwhelmed. That's not possible. He had a Fender sticker and a 311 sticker and something else that was really cool brand. And then I met him, and he was like, "Yeah, I got this new boombox, but I needed to make it look cool, so I put some stickers on it." And that was like his whole, you know, us. And then we hung out a lot, and a few times went to the Viper Room together, and then we recorded for the South Park soundtrack, and I got to work with him and Rick Rubin. And it was like this another humbling moment, all-star band that had Flea on bass, Tom Morello and me on guitar, DJ Bonebreak from X playing drums, Benmont Tench from the Heartbreakers on keyboards. So it was just like this most insane super band that I was like this kid there. Like it was pretty cool.
That's so sick, man. That's incredible. Like, oh man. And like, cause Joe's an intense guy. Like you just hearing bits from him, it's like, whoa, everything this guy says, like write this down. It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so during your like moments getting to kick it with him a bit, and like you're even in a, I guess as well as in a studio session, like setting, did you notice any of that? Were there any like kind of strummer-isms that you took away from your interactions?
He said, get to know your family tree. You're going to find it more and more interesting as you grow up, as you get older, to know the backstory, the roots of your history, and where your family came from. And, you know, I asked him about and his dad was like in the civil service, and I think he was born in Greece. And he also said, immigrants, I'm thinking of the Hamilton line, immigrants, they get the job done. But he was like, you know, everybody in the original Clash were, you know, immigrants and not from like the posh places. Even though he was, you know, firmly middle class, but and he said in the later version of the Clash, you know, we had all these London hipsters from art school and stuff, and they just couldn't cut it, man. They just couldn't cut it. You know, something about the grit of a hungrier people. I was like, cool. I mean, I think that kind of informs being a bit of an outsider. I mean, being from Nebraska, everyone was like, Nebraska, you know what I mean? I was like, it's cooler than you think. Thank you very much. And it was, so there's definitely similarities there, but you can be from anywhere if you have that hunger and that passion. But it kind of helps to have that, like, something to prove kind of thing.
Yeah, but also like, and it kind of like leads to what you're doing a bit now, as far as like knowing your roots musically, and because your family's fairly musical, correct?
Yeah, my dad played trumpet. My mom sang and played a really good piano, like kind of boogie woogie stride piano style, and she sang in a jazz band in college and cut an album, and then her parents from Nashville, they're very set, sort of Nashville, like everybody's got instruments and they can kind of play. And my great aunt playing the auto harp that you can actually see in the video for the song 1978. It's all made from my home movies. You can see my great aunt with this huge puffy bouffant hair strumming the auto harp, and we're little kids singing. It was pretty cool.
That's incredible. And it's kind of like, well, I guess with what you're doing now, with diving more into country and kind of folk music, tracing your roots, it's following Strummer's orders.
Yeah. You know, it's always been part of me to love that old-timey feel and those instruments that have been around since prior to electrification. You know, the mandolin, there's just something when you hear it that's just takes you to another place. And then I love the pedal steel. That's like such a beautiful and difficult to play instrument. And I play it on about half the songs on my Faces of Hope and Hollow album, but then certain songs are like, I need like a real player to do this, because this is too hard. Like the song Solitude by, you know, the Billie Holiday cover by Duke Ellington, that one I needed a real
A lot of
real good
changes.
player. Yeah. It's very sophisticated.
Well, yeah, and that's a tough instrument. Like I play lap steel, and I play in a group in Ohio called C level or C dash, and like I play lap steel, and I got one with a bender. You know what I mean? So it's like a baby step towards a pedal steel, and like
Yeah, no, I
man,
think that I kind of wish I would have done that, because like all I really want to do is be able to. I just wish it was simple, that there was just like one pedal made major to minor. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I think
yeah.
that's what you get when you get a bender. The guys in Water Tower, he plays a lap steel and he has a bender to do that. And I was like, this is like much simpler and sounds just as good.
It is. It does. It gets the trick, but also it's just like this pedal makes it now it's an E minor. Now it's like, and those are expensive, man. It's an expensive like thing to pick up to be like, I'm gonna learn this now. It's like $3,000 in, like to get a pedal steel.
And then getting it serviced. There's like one guy in California that can fix them, and he's actually awesome. Though I ship it down to San Diego when I need to, and it's pretty reasonable. But yeah, you got 10 strings, three pedals, a knee bender, volume pedal. I mean, you're just everything's working at once. It's pretty nuts.
That's incredible. So one thing I found interesting with following 311 and following you is like your guitar skills grow throughout the evolution of like 311, and like more and more it seems like everything like gets incorporated as a band doing that. And like, were you always playing guitar, or did guitar come like later as the band took off?
So in high school, me and Tim had a band and we both played guitar. But he was always more the lead guitarist. And then in the first iteration of 311, we were called Unity, and I switched to bass because after hearing the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I was like, this is a very important instrument. And so I played bass. And then after a couple of years of that, I was like, I just want to be the front man. And that's when we found Peanut. And but I think it was really in my mid 30s that I decided to, and I also played in the jazz concert jazz band in high school, so I knew jazz chords and stuff like that, and that's where I met Chad. So I've always been playing. I started piano when I was 5, switched to guitar when I was 12, but it was in my mid 30s that I decided, like, okay, let's be humble and ask for help and admit where, there's this whole areas that I could really help with. My technique, my speed, my knowledge of scales, like being able to play every mode in every position up and down the neck just opened up this whole world for me. Like, and so still when I'm warming up, I like to run through like doing like 3 notes per string scales, and then I'll run through, the Ionian mode and then the Dorian mode, and then just move them on up. So I all the way up and down and do it in time to a metronome. So it's a nice workout. And then after that, I noticed that my speed and accuracy is so much better after I do that. So it's just training like an athlete. And yeah, so that it was the mid 30s when I worked with a few different guitar teachers, and that really helped me. And then one of them, this guy, Gabe Isaac, became like a collaborator. He wrote some of the kind of songs that I consider a breakthrough from about 7 or 8 years ago, like Fire, another one called Friday Afternoon, that go into all these really different movements. We call them epics, where it starts one place and then goes through these different sections and ends up in this big, like, crazy metal 2-guitar kind of thing. And so that was written with one of my guitar teachers. And so I don't know, I love to collaborate and ask for help, but there was that kind of pivotal moment where I was like, yes, I should take lessons, even though I'm already a successful musician. There's always places to learn and get better, and just keeping that curiosity going.
I think that's huge. That's incredibly important. And there's so many lessons just from accepting that and doing that. And like you grow more out of it. And like I always find that going back to the basics, if it's just rhythmic building blocks, duration and scales, modes, all these things that build up everything we listen to, it's like when you like just step and accept that process and work with it, you see that growth. And that's incredible, man. Very
Totally.
cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So at what point did Fish Hippos come to be?
So that was just, I think they did a couple gigs under that name in maybe the beginning of 1990. And then when I was bumming around Europe. I was in Germany, and I called Chad, and I said, yeah, so what's going on? He was like, well, I've been playing with this bass player, this kid. I think he was 14, Peanut at the time, and he said, and we got a gig opening for Fugazi, and I was like, really? He was like, yeah, you want to come and be part of it? And I was like, yeah, but I'm not. I think let's find a new name. So the first gig was billed as Fish Hippos because they had already like booked the gig. And then on stage during that show, I announced that we were 311 from now on. And it was, that was a name that Peanut had, that he had done a talent show on, in practically grade school. He was so young. And he was like, we're called 311. And I was like, cool, I love it. And he was like, and it's the police code for indecent exposure. And I was like, cool, I still love it. I just really liked having a number. It was, I don't know, very part of this sort of Gen X sort of like history. And, just even the name Gen X is called like,
right.
It's called that because there's a mystery to it. You know what I mean? So I like the mysteriousness of it. And it was pretty unique. And then there was also a couple bands before us that like 24/7 Spies and Third Base came right before us. So having the numeral in the band name was pretty of the moment. And then a whole bunch more came after us.
But what an incredible first gig with Fugazi, man. That's so sick. That's so cool. Like,
because they were ready to mosh. So we like to have the whole place jumping up and down for your first gig.
Right.
It was like the best launching pad that we could ever have asked for.
Well, do you remember any like interactions with Ian or any of the other crew?
Well, we showed up and we were drinking 40 ounces of OE. Okay. And then I found out later that was kind of a faux pas because they're like straight edge. And it was like, but they didn't say anything. They were very nice.
That's awesome. That's so cool. But like also like man, I don't know. Like those guys are so like to the point, do the gig. Everyone's there for the music. Like, I mean, I gotta imagine you were hip to Fugazi.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Waiting Room was just like this massive song at Repeater, and the 13 Songs albums were big for me. So I was really excited.
Did you guys ever circle back around with cats like that, with like Fugazi from these early ages?
I feel like he was asked about it and somebody sent me a clip and he was nice. But I've never met them in person since that day.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Well, Ian's like one of those guys who's got it archived and he's got the receipts from, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
all DIY, you know what I mean? No assistance, no man. Like it's his, and that's super cool.
That's so cool. And to kind of jump off that to in the DC area, you've recorded this amazing track with HR recently off his new record. Did you guys like circle back, or did you in the early days like play with Bad Brains as well, or like how did you meet HR and end up working with H?
We've always just been so vocal about what a inspiration they were, and having punk with such great chops. And just such an explosive energy, but then able to go into like beautiful reggae and there's a lot of like funk and he calls it acid rock influence and disco, and so we had always just loved anything genre bending. I mean, I think for us in the early days it was Jane's Addiction, Chili Peppers, Bad Brains, Fishbone were the bands that we really like this is the next shit, and that really influenced us a lot. So we were very vocal about that. And then the first time we started directly communicate, well, we hired Ron St. Germain. That was our dream, to work with Ron St. Germain, because he produced, in my opinion, the two best Bad Brains album, Eye Against Eye and Quickness. And the production was just so nuts on those albums. So we worked with him on the Blue album, and that was our big breakthrough. And so we would ask all these different questions. And there's so many cool stories, like Sacred Love, the song off of Eye Against Eye, Ron St. was recorded while HR was in jail over the phone. He did the vocal over the phone. So all these cool stories about Bad Brains. And then when it came to do this sound system album, there was a Bad Brains tribute album being put together by all these different artists. And so we made the song Leaving Babylon for that. But then we were like, we'd rather just put this on our own album. And then so we got in touch with them, and they're like, with Bad Brains members, and they're like, is it okay if we just put it on the next 311 album? And they said, that's probably going to be more royalties if you do it that way. So yes, go ahead and please put it on sound system. And then of course we covered Who's Got the Herb became a big part of our live show. And that's an HR song. Some people don't know that. I try and, hey, this is his song. And then I got in touch with the guys from Pepper, because they're affiliated with Law Records, and they were putting together a new Bad Brains album and just asking different people to do a guest vocal. And this was during the pandemic, so it was all remote. And they sent me the track, and HR's vocal is so unique and so cool. Like, what a beautiful voice he has. Very underrated, very underappreciated for his genius. And of course, he's, had personal issues that put him in and out of Bad Brains. But what a creative soul he is. And it was a real honor to get to do that.
It's an incredible track, and I love how you accompany what he does, but when it goes to your verse, like, you have this, it's like an adaptation of your cadence to kind of fit H's cadence, and it was really, like, I can tell you put a lot of attention to what he was doing in what you added to that track.
I think that when I would warm up for a vocal, I would put on, to me, I can hear the reggae singer Horace Andy was a big influence on HR. And you also hear Horace Andy singing on the Massive Attack albums, but that really intense vibrato and the crispiness, I can't sing that high, but I can. So when I warm up for a vocal, I'll put on either an HR solo album, like Charge is a really good reggae album. I think that was his first solo album after Bad Brains. And so that's a huge influence of me singing kind of with it exaggerated. Like you can hear that he also was influenced by like Iron Maiden and some this like operatic kind of thing. So that's something that I've been influenced by.
That's incredible, man. It's such a cool track. And like H, like my band, we just did a track with H, and like it's really cool just to see the support system he has now, and like how like he's still going at it and like just coming out with new stuff, and has a team that's making sure he can do it the best he can with the most like accommodation, or with all the accommodations that he can need to get through it. And it's incredibly inspiring to see that guy still like kicking ass.
Yeah.
So cool. So like one thing that kind of like I've always found your cadence and your voice, and like no matter where it is, I know it's you. And like, when I first started trying to sing and play, the one thing, like, I remember asking people, like, well, how did you find yourself? What do you do? And like, I asked, I don't know, do you ever do any work with state radio or Dispatch, those cats?
Yeah, we had state radio out on a tour once.
Okay, very cool, man.
I love Dispatch too. We did a festival with them a few years ago, and I hadn't seen them before. I was on the side of the stage, just like, this is the shit right here.
But their vocal harmonies, it's so incredible, great songwriting. And like, maybe, like I asked Chad, I was like, what did you do to find your voice? And he's like, you just keep doing it. And I was like, but then I found that to be true. You know what I mean? Like, but anyway, with your specific range and cadence, it's so unique and cool. No matter where it is, I can hear it. So I guess my question, that long thing to make it into a question, would be like, how did you find like your range and your comfort zone? Like,
I've always loved to sing, and influenced by, and then I realized there were certain singers that I could hit all the notes they could. Like, I could never try and sing like Sting or Supertramp or one of these, or Perry Farrell for that matter, or one of these really high vocals. But I could hit the notes that Jim Morrison hits, or Frank Sinatra, or Morrissey. So more of the, I guess technically I'm a tenor, but I mean, I think I'm in between baritone and tenor. And I guess I just had a lot to say, and maybe also wanting to be the center of attention. You know what I mean? Like, you have to, if you don't enjoy attention, it's not the right line of work for you. So, being a front man and stuff, and, putting in those 10,000 hours came from cover bands in high school, just taking all the gigs you can. And now even that, learning to have the courage to go and busk on a freeway off-ramp with my friends from Water Tower, that was a great experience, because when you're singing without amplification, that really gets your voice ready for gigs. So there's never an excuse like, well, I would sing if I had any gigs. No, go make your own gigs. So yeah, and then just wide a range of influence, from jazz and reggae and punk and just all over the place.
No, that makes sense. It's like seeing what you comfortably can kind of replicate and analyzing what that is to find yourself within it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And like, busking on the street with no amplification is such a different, especially with like a kind of a lower, that's a lot of oomph you got to give. With the Water Tower Band, how'd you come across those cats?
I just knew Kenny from like sober community here in LA, and then I just had mentioned like being interested in learning mandolin. He was like, I can teach you. So it started out with some mandolin lessons, and I was like, well, why don't you come over and let's write a song? And then like that first day, we made the music for Lonely Existence and Cosmic Connection. So it was just like a very fertile arrangement for us to work together. And then he said, why don't you come and busk on a freeway off-ramp with me? And I was like, I don't know, really? So we're actually going to get together tomorrow and run through some tunes. And then going out on just a short California run with them. But I had so much fun on the tour with them. We rented an RV for that one, and I was like, I love this so much that I went out and bought a used RV. And so now I'm like, can do everything super grassroots, like just get in the RV and keep expenses low. And I love making music, and it's nice to go and tour in a smaller setting where you're like up close with people and meeting a lot of people, and also crowded around one mic where you're not really using a PA. It's very like old timey to just have one microphone for the whole deal.
It's like it's a different like experience because you're kind of encapsulated by the whole harmonic like structure of the band, and like you can see like the visual leveling of like someone stepping back and someone stepping forward. It's a really
Yeah.
cool like with that like bluegrass style or country style when everyone leans in and you get hit by it. It's a really cool experience.
Yeah. And to find out that on classic bluegrass songs, they usually would like vamp for one bar before each verse to give the singer a chance to get up to the front. It was even like part of the songwriting, like keep going until he's ready to sing. Okay, now start with the verse.
Wicked. Like, so I guess with your songwriting approach, it seems very collaborative. Like even like getting ready to chat with you, re-listening to all these like 311 records, I'm like, man, these structures are really like song structures are very like unique and like would be really kind of hard to chart out or even like figure out how you guys went about writing it. And like, so I'd have to imagine a lot of it is collaborative, right?
Yeah, I think to me, there's just a certain that kind of started happening around that same time in my mid 30s when I started taking guitar lessons, just realizing that I had lots to learn from people. And so doing more co-write sessions and so forth. And before that, there was definitely collaboration where, Chad would play a riff and I was like, okay, I'll make an idea for the chorus, or Chad would do a whole instrumental bed and then me and SA would make the vocals. So there was always a collaborative element to it. Or you take a song like Homebrew. I called it that because it was basically 4 different guys' riffs. Chad and Tim and me and Peanut each submitted a riff for that song called Homebrew. So it's always been a big part of it. But sometimes if I have like a real strong vision, like Amber, I just sat down and wrote by myself in like 90 minutes. But other songs are super collaborative, and it's just anything goes. You know what I mean? Like there's no, well, we do it this way. If you get set in that, that's where you're screwed. You have to be ready to explore and try new things.
100% agree with that. You got to be flexible. If not, the tree breaks, right? The bamboo comes back.
That's right.
But so then like listening to a tune like All Mixed Up, it's like there's so many like different hooks in that song. Like every part is like just it could be its own thing. Like with that one in particular, was that kind of like the same thing? You guys are all bringing different stuff?
No, All Mixed Up I wrote by myself, except SA wrote his rap for that little vocal that he does in there. And I was very influenced by dance hall and reggae that was coming from Jamaica at the time. But we liked the subgenre of dance hall that combined reggae vocals with hip hop beats. So that's what the song All Mixed Up is. It's a hip hop beat because classic dance hall has the boom, 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 boom. But this one is like boom, like just a classic hip hop beat. But then what's weird about it is that I was like, what if we make the bass line straight and the drums are shuffle? So the bass line is bum, bum, do 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 boom. And since the drums are, you would normally think the bass line would be like boom, boom, do 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 do, because that would match the shuffle of the drums. But I was like, no, we're gonna keep the bass straight and put a shuffle drum beat over it. And so that gives it a very unique feel. And then I wish I could remember how I came up with a ding, 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 like those jazz chords with a major 7 and stuff in there. I don't remember where that came from. And it's also like, why does that work? Because it's like I'm starting with the minor 3 chord and then going up a half step, and that came from somewhere else, but it worked out.
It's incredibly catchy. I remember that was like one of the first times I learned a major 7 chord was from trying to figure that song out, you know? It was like that opened up the rabbit hole of chord extensions. I was like, oh my God. But that's
yeah, I guess it would be under like calling it substitutions to have that middle chord in there that has these passing tones. So it's very jazzy.
right. No, it would have to be like what that would look like. I don't know. I'd have to look at the bass, but I think the bass follows it at that point. So, but so I guess like with like all these like kind of recent collaborations, what have been like some of the stronger songwriting lessons you've taken from working with other people recently?
Um, there's a guy named Sam Hollander who wrote a book called 21 Hit Wonder because he's like written like 21 big hits, who's just become a really good friend. And we share a birthday, like born on the exact same day. And he wrote the song New Heights from our new album. And he's just become a really good friend. And just the way he suggests lyrics and just gets onto this thread and just comes with all these random things. It's learning that randomness is important. Like if you stay within some little box, it's not going to be interesting. So learning to cultivate randomness was one nice thing that I learned. And then working with my guitar teacher Gabe, where he would have these really sophisticated understanding of like classical music and how to bring that into rock. A couple of the ones that come to mind.
Okay. Well, how does one cultivate randomness?
By not having strictures, by not having rules, by just not having boundaries for yourself, and a lot of experimentation and a lot of courage. You know what I mean? Like if you're too worried about what people think, it's going to become bland. So being bold, and then I take it more to like my daily life, that I need to cultivate awe, the feeling of awe that you get from nature or from a beautiful piece of music, and to set out time to do that. And if you're being influenced by awe, then you're going to know it when you stumble upon it in your music.
I think that's like when getting ready to talk with you, I heard you do this bit on the idea and the word awe, and like I love tearing apart words like that, like how there's awful and awesome, and like just there's so much within our language we don't even think about that we just kind of say, right?
Yeah.
And like that really made me think for a minute, and like I think that's a really profound statement. And like, so is for you with cultivating awe, is it just being open like that? Like, what do you do to cultivate awe?
So your senses are a portal into the present moment, because we all know like it's really important to be here now and be in the moment and be present. Like everybody talks about that at a yoga class or whatever, but it's like, well, how, and to me, using my senses, a breeze just came up as I said that. So to like, okay, there's a little bit of awe there, and to like not look away and to stay with that for a minute. And then just, we all get in the rat race of I got things to do and fill up our whole day, but really prioritizing, taking some time to get out into nature or to do, it doesn't have to be nature. You can, like I said, the feeling of dancing in time with other people is a quick way to get awe. Just syncing up with other people it is super important. But if we're in the future, it might be worry or fear. And if it's more likely, we don't sit around and think about how great the future is going to be. We might be like, oh, this could be a problem. Or in the past, it's a little bit more likely that it could be, oh, I wish that wouldn't have happened, or resentment or whatever. But here in the moment, everything's okay. So using my senses to get into the present moment. If I'm up in my head about something, to take a deep breath, listen to the birds, go and feel the sun on my skin, touch something, smell something, that is going to be like, boom, all of a sudden I'm back into the present moment. So that's the kind of thing I do to get myself ready for creativity. And if you get in that headspace, then ideas are going to come. And so it's just about being like an open channel.
That's profound. I think, like, there's this cat, Kenny Warner. He's got this book called Effortless Mastery, and it's kind of like a musician's meditation to kind of get out of the way of what musicians find to be like the hang up. Oh, if I play bad, I feel bad, right? And like a lot of the approach is finding that is being in that moment and just, here we are. I played this note. It's the best note I've ever played, even if it's the wrong note. You know what I mean? And like, because like if Monk played that note, it'd be the greatest note in the world, And like, or if Miles played that note, it'd be the greatest note in the world. But when I play that note, I missed, So it's kind of getting away from that, being in that moment. And with your concept of all, it kind of takes me to thinking of some of his other teachings like that, and like I think those are some wise words, my friend. Like,
thank you. Yeah, my brother is a great jazz musician, and I can't remember which saxophonist said this, but he was like, "Oh yeah, when I hit a wrong note, I will go back to that note deliberately, and then it's not a wrong note anymore." You know what I mean? So it's just all about your attitude and perspective.
It's incredible. But it so is, and like I don't know why it is when we mess it up, we feel bad, but it's part of the learning curve. Now, I have another question about some openers. Like I think the first time I saw you guys, you had Ziggy Marley open, and we have some friends in Austin, Texas, and I don't know if it was that tour or the tour before that play in a band called Full Service. And they would play in all your parking lots pre-show, and eventually somehow you guys met and they got to open for you. Did you? So
and they came on our cruise a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like, I kind of want to hear the story from your perspective of like, was there anyone being like, "Hey, there's these guys in the parking lot playing," or?
That's exactly what happened. We just saw videos that they would just open up the side of their van and start playing, and then people would just kind of come up and start grooving. And I was like, that's grassroots right there. I applaud them big time. And then just hearing from our fans that people thought it was rad, I was like, well, let's make it official. Let's get them out here.
That's incredible. Well, and it kind of goes back to the Fugazi start, the DIY opening of it. That's exactly. So cool. And it's so cool you guys keep them on the cruise and everything. That's wicked.
Yeah. Good guys.
Very cool. Very cool. So, and kind of like diving in, I guess another songwriting question I have is like, when you guys are developing new sound, and like I noticed, and I don't know if it could be different how the records get put out, right? And what songs are written in between. It's never as clear cut as like, this came out during this time, songs are always floating in between. But Do You Right, off the first record, had like this like super unique sound out of your already unique sound, and it was like a different approach to like writing. I feel, was that like the case? And like, what kind of brought that song to have that like kind of calypso different feel to it compared to the other kind of like metal rap rock tunes at that time?
So that was written when I remember writing it with Chad in his little apartment when we went to college briefly in 1989 in Lincoln. And I remember Chad showing me the riff, bum, 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 bum. Just so many offbeats, which is very, like you said, calypso. It's very, very Latin influenced. But then doing it with big distorted guitars with an octaver pedal on it, made it super different. And that tempo is really good for jumping. And then I was like, so since this is kind of Latin, little tricks that I knew on of Latin guitars, they would go dun dun dun. You just like you do an E chord and then you move the E chord up to an F, but keep the open strings open, and that's a very like Malagueña or whatever these classic Spanish sounding songs that we knew. So I was like, okay, that's the next part. And then I was like, the chorus, I was like, no, we need a big, simple chorus that's just like 1, 4, 5. Dun, 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 dun. So, and then ending it with a like, there's something, if you listen to fanfare or something, just a big simple hits of the entire orchestra or band or whatever is doing the same thing, and just going like staying in the major scale. So those are kind of some of the things I remember about it. And we had an earlier version of it that had these like super sappy romantic lyrics. And then when we moved out to LA, we were like, we need to make this a little bit more abstract. So we started over, and me and S.A. rewrote the words to make it more poetic and kind of hard to talk what I didn't know what we were talking about, but we kept the chorus because it was just like a feel-good chorus.
That's incredible, man. I have a couple questions for my bass player. He wanted to know what what inspired the song Tranquility.
Yeah, so Tranquility just came from a time when I was just doing a ton of meditation and just getting into the bigger questions of like, what is the purpose? What are we doing? And, realizing that, we're here to like face our shit and facing fears. So it's kind of a mixture about how it's important to go towards the fear to be able to grow. And finding a sense of purpose and meaning, all part of the plan. Like, we're exactly right where we're supposed to be, even if we make mistakes. If you just zoom out to the fact that this is just this tiny blip in human history, that like it's all part of the plan. If we're being contributing member of society, if we're helping out other people in the world, then like that's basically as good as it gets. So those are some of the things that I was thinking about. Musically, just simple chords, kind of little shoegazy, like with the slow tempo and, big guitar solo. Tim really kicked butt on the guitar solo. And kind of atmospheric keyboards, but it all just started with a simple strum. So those are some of the memories that come about that song.
Beautiful. Now, like, for the amount of like output you have with 311, with the solo project, like, I wonder, like, do you have like a writing schedule for yourself? Do you have like a routine you do to always kind of be generating ideas? Like,
I mean, that works. But no, I basically try and live my life as sort of do whatever I want at all times if I can.
I definitely, yeah, I get it.
Follow the awe, follow the muse. I mean, I do have things that I know make my life better. So I'll start my day with exercise because that's my antidepressant. So there are certain things that are non-negotiable, but as far as like creatively, I just try and follow like whatever's exciting me next. And then it comes in waves, but you can't just rely on a wave to come. You have to, at some point, like, all right, it's been a minute. Let's get in there. And sometimes you need to write a bad song to get it out of the way to make space for a good song. And quantity begets quality. So the more you write, the higher the quality will get. So, fortunately, I like to make music a lot. I was on the tour we just had with Limp Bizkit, we had a lot of days off because it was like they were trucking the gear from country to country. So I have like 3 days off between gigs. And I did a lot of sightseeing, but I also had a recording rig with me, and I was getting it really, finding my inner pendulum swinging back towards early jazz, like 1940s, kind of right before rock and roll, when jazz was pop. These most beautiful songs, whether it's Billie Holiday or Sarah Vaughan, Dinah Washington, Frank Sinatra, or the early rock and roll. So that's what excited me, and I made a bunch of new demos, and we'll see what happens next.
That's awesome. Maybe more Shadow Pages?
Stuff like that, yeah.
Very cool. I mean, those tunes are so lush, and like, there's something about like, I mean, and that was pop music at the time, which is kind of crazy to think, you know what I mean? Like, this is complicated stuff. But, and like, I mean, I think to some degree, pop music now has those complications in other ways, but like, that's incredible.
Yeah, and there's these interesting in-betweens, like you take like Bobby Darin with Beyond the Sea or Mac the Knife, and it was jazz, but it was also early rock and roll. And then another example of kind of in between, you take the song Crazy by Patsy Cline, but of course by Willie Nelson. And that is a very jazzy song. Like, we've heard it a million times, but if you learn it, you're like, whoa, this is not country. As you know, generally country is like 1, 4, or 5, but these are some really sophisticated chords. So I like exploring the in-betweens. That's always been what, 311 is about, is exploring, finding new combinations, and like I said, cultivating randomness.
That's beautiful. And like, well, and the even for like further jazz crazy, like Willie kind of had that Frank Sinatra cadence with his voice, or you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and I mean, that's littered all over his stuff, but like, it's really interesting.
Stardust, and
very cool. Okay, I got one more bass player question. So my bass player and I, when we really like got to see you guys for the first time, Uplifter came out. So for us, that was like, oh, this record slaps. Do you have any thoughts or memories from the creation of Uplifter?
Yeah, so we were excited to work with Bob Rock, and that his presence was much bigger than we were used to having on a producer. I mean, Ron St. Germain was a big presence, but he was more focused on like the engineering side of things, of just having like the most killer tones. Bob was in there with an acoustic guitar and like reworking songs with us from more of a musician standpoint. And he had the biggest bag of tricks that you could imagine. Like, he brought all these guitar pedals and guitars and outboard gear stuff, but then also just really going in deep with the lyrics. And so it was a very strong collaborative presence that he brought to that. And just like when Metallica made an album with Bob Rock, there was a bit of a backlash of like, this is too different, or it's gone pop now, or whatever. But like, you can't please everybody. So we did get a little of that after that album, but it's all about progress and exploration and learning.
Well said. And I have one more question for you, Nick. Thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So you're coming to the Grog Shop here in Cleveland with the Water Tower Band, and I wonder, like, if you have any early 311 memories, or just of your own memories of being here in Cleveland.
Well, I do know that we debuted Amber live there in Cleveland at that. I think they've changed the name a couple times, but it's right on the side of the river with a big white tent.
Okay. Yeah, they did. I'm trying to imagine what that would have been at that time. Nautica is what it is now, but yeah, okay.
In that place, anyway, that we debuted. Amber there for the first time. And we were really scared to play it live because it was so quiet compared to the rest of our music. But of course now we've become very used to playing that song. But just killer crowds, Cleveland rocks. There's a reason for that expression because it's just like Omaha, very energetic crowds of people that are not jaded. They're ready to have a good time and not, LA gets a well-deserved rap for that like the crowds aren't the most responsive and energetic. We can get through to them here, but it's different. So yeah, very just awesome crowds in Cleveland. And I'm sure there's in the back of the memory bank somewhere, there's lots of good memories, but yeah, it's awesome that we can do like 3 great shows in Ohio to play Columbus and Cincy and Cleveland. So we're grateful to our Ohio fans.
Beautiful. That's a pretty great Cleveland memory. I did like that's where Amber got live. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you. I look forward to seeing you at the Grog Shop, and I really appreciate your time, man. This has been very insightful.
Yeah, man. This was fun. Thanks for having me.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig at the Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.